Hi guys, welcome to the Inner Circle. As you can see, it's me, Scrivo, but today, instead of being on the right-hand side, like, oh, that way, there we go, with the slides, instead I've got someone else with me. I've formed my own Inner Circle for the day. I am joined by the lovely Pierre from Tryhard Wargaming / Team Wales to talk about Dark Angels, specifically through the lens of the Teams format, because 2 weekends ago, 1 weekend ago, I don't remember now, it's so long ago, but also so close, we were both at the Battle of Britain, both playing Dark Angels under the umbrella of Team Wales. Yeah, so how are you, buddy?
I'm very well, thank you for the intro. No, I'm very good. I'm very good. I think you blink and then time flies, and next thing I know, Christmas is on the horizon.
Yeah, Christmas 2026 is here almost.
Talk about Dark Angels. It's a nice army box, right? Pre-orders on Saturday.
I wasn't dribbling over that early, I'm not going to lie. As someone that already owns everything in the box, apart from the chaplain, I still want one. I don't have a problem, you have a problem.
Oh, 100%.
So, shall we get started on why you would take Dark Angels in a Teams format, or have taken them, more importantly, I suppose, because you did for Battle of Britain. So, nice simple one for me was, it's one of my two armies, but for you, why did you pick them over, say, Ultramarines Vanguard or an Iron Storm list that wasn't specifically Dark Angels?
Sure. I mean, I could go into some sort of really weird and complex meta-defining big brain argument. But it kind of came down to, well, what models do I have?
Yeah.
What faction do I like? And what have I been playing recently? So I think the Dark Angels and Teams very much came from the fact I've been playing them in singles quite a lot recently. And I thought they would still have a place in Teams. Basically trying to kind of narrow in that BA, Ultramarines, DA, which faction plays what in Teams. So thought I'd give Dark Angels a go and kind of see what the learnings from that were.
Yeah, so you did the similar sort of thing to me, where we both took a Gladius kind of task force with, I think you had more Deathwing Knights. You had 3 units, didn't you?
Yes, yeah, I stuck to the core 15, and that's kind of what makes the army. I dropped the Eradicator Brick and the Repulsor.
Same.
After a conversation with very good Marine players, and thought, cool, we'll put 2 Vindicators in based on sort of the feedback received, and see if that kind of equivates sort of what we had before.
Yeah. So obviously the Vindicators give you a slightly longer range threat than the Eradicators in a weird sort of way, because obviously in the transport they do kind of get out, get to move, kind of get the same sort of distance, but I guess it's that kind of, you can cut angles with a Vindicator where the infantry guys almost have to just be out in the open to see something and 18 inches away. Makes them a bit risky as well, for the price as well.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think, once you factor in, the hardiness of a Vindicator as well, right? It's got nice toughness. You can always position it so it's got some level of cover. Can shoot in combat. Whereas Eradicators, you have to be really, really careful. They got to come out. They got to punch, and you got to kind of be careful on the platform. You don't lose all of them. You can be a bit more aggressive with Vindicators, I feel.
Yeah, because they got 2 up base as well, which I think really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you factor in cover, you put in your armor of contempt, and you're in a pretty good place.
And if someone really catches you out, you can pop smoke, I suppose, if you're really desperate.
If you've got the CP and it really is Hail Mary, then absolutely, yeah.
So I guess the other kind of question I had, kind of, why, for you currently, you didn't take Blood Angels. I'm guessing it was a similar reason that I didn't, is as much as anything, it was the production meta. And the book is still quite new, right? That we're all kind of trying to solve the most optimum way for teams to give that skew, right? Because the old version of Blood Angels was all that Death Company, and you knew what it did. It ran forward, it punched things, it then shot things, and it just kept going. Whilst I don't think it's quite as simple now. And I guess the closest we have to that is that the Deathwing Knights, supported by things like Inner Circle Companions or Blade Guard, gives that similar sort of vibe.
Yes, so I think Blood Angels, we saw them at Pyra, and they came out strong, and when all of them descend upon you, it's actually quite a lot of damage in one turn. But given you've got quite a lot of things like Tyranids in the meta, which aren't very great for Blood Angels, and I think there's a bit of a cooling off of Blood Angels going on at the moment. I find the Dark Angels are much a much steadier scorer. You play a longer game, you hide a bit more, you decide when you're pushing out. And when you're coupling that with the Advance and Charger Gladius, if you've staged properly, actually you've got the sort of threat range to go and punch when you need to go punch. So I felt like Dark Angels definitely have a bit of a longer game plan, shall we say. With the 2 CP command rail, you can recycle secondaries as well as get the ones you want in the first 3 turns. So it adds up in my mind.
And I guess that means that, especially in a teams format, you've got that situation where you can keep the games closer, you can be a bit more measured, and a lot of the time you don't really want to be trying to push for those bigger scores with something like with Dark Angels. So being able to keep it close is probably quite useful, I guess.
Agreed. I think Dark Angels are not a push army. They are a sort of, hold the field in the WTC teams context. You're sort of looking for a kind of a 8 to 12 point faction, and Dark Angels can sort of do that fairly reliably, I'd say.
Yeah. So how did you find them going into that meta? Because obviously you said that you kind of were expecting maybe not to see as much of the Blood Angels, despite them being kind of omnipresent briefly beforehand. How did you find it? Because I found it quite mixed as a in that format, especially on things like the more lighter boards of WTC. I found it was quite punishing at times. So how did you find it?
No, similar finding. I think it becomes very much a hold faction, as discussed, in the same way the kind of Chaos Knights fill that role, so to speak. But you also lay that with a requirement for a board where you can at least hide what needs to be hidden until the turn it needs to come out. So, you don't want a light board. You want to be able to stage. That's very important for them. And if you do that correctly, there's more of an upswing. You can get those 14, maybe even 16 points. Yeah. But if you leave them on the board in the open, I had that against a guard player who just annihilated me. You may know him. A man by the name of Harley.
He was doing war crimes that weekend. Yeah,
he was, and I think that was difficult. I find against the Sisters matchup, the Exorcists, it's a bit more scary, but you're probably
still quite rough. Yeah,
it can be rough,
though, right? Yeah,
it can be rough, but statistically, you should still have some Deathwing Knights in the end. But I actually found it was very, very mission dependent. For example. So things like Purge the Foe is great. You hide behind your wall, you're going to get that draw because you're getting your 4 points for holding a point, and then you're probably getting 4 points because you send out a JPI a jump back intercessor out there and you kill some scribblies. Yeah. So mission dependent.
So you touched on Sisters and Guard as kind of those kind of threats to them. Was there any other factions that you really wanted to go into with them, would you say?
Yeah, I want to go into. Yeah. It's always a tough one. It's funny because I don't feel there's any faction I specifically kind of go, cool, that's going to be a massive green to me. I don't think Dark Angels are a faction which wants to go into anything. But I think it's a faction which, again, doesn't necessarily want to hide from too much either. Again, it comes down to if you have that terrain piece, your Deathwing Knight will probably be around by round 3, by round 4 if you're laying your strats. So
just not into the CSM going first, as I found.
That's actually a very fair point. Now the Obliterators, I think I played Sam as well. Nemesis of all players, because his ability to roll 6s is Manny Chima-like.
Disgusting.
It's awful. But actually, it's a tough matchup on the Oblits because the Oblits can wipe out all your mission pieces. So you're left with 15 Deathwing Knights, which are alive, but then you've got nothing to go and score your secondaries with. So you're just sitting there behind a wall going, I'm in the wrong.
Yeah. And I think that's the big weakness of the army, is if someone can peel off your scoring, you're just left with 5-inch move Terminators that will eventually die. If they've got most of their army to shoot at 5 at a time, they will pick them up, but it just requires some effort, right?
I mean, there's something to 2 up, 4 up, it's great. The -1 damage is great until it's not, right? It's ultimately a dice game. And
exactly.
We had one turn, I think a Demolisher tank commander just wiped out 5 Deathwing Knights. And it's like, well, it happens. It happens, right? It does.
Just happens, doesn't it? So moving forward for future events, what are your is your approach? Are you going to take Dark Angels? Because I know it's the international team tournament this weekend. Have you stuck with them? Have you pivoted?
I have pivoted.
Yeah. So this is 5-man teams rather than 8, right? So it's slightly different format. So
correct. I think in the 5-man, because the pairing is so much quicker, and I'd say there's less strategy to the 5-man compared to the 8-man.
Agreed.
Especially on UKTC terrain. So obviously, Battle of Britain was WTC terrain, which is probably a little denser. You've got more staging points and such. UKTC is more of a shooting focused kind of terrain meta, so to speak. And in a 5-man team, you can probably more reliably think what you're likely to fall into. So I pivoted to guard. Big surprise. I know no one else plays them.
Innovative.
Oh, that's me. That's what they always associate me with.
Is it the Harley list or the Nassim list?
It's more of a Nassim list. Obviously, drop some put-ons, put in some more Ogrins. Yeah, I think it's more of a push meta. So you want to kind of thump on people in shooting and hold your 1 or 2 points in a way that you got to dominate on UKTC in a way you don't necessarily have to in WTC because of the terrain density.
Yeah. I guess the only other difference is for the UKTC format is you get the big super elves, which are kind of quite good for staging, so can help with things like the Deathwing Knights, but at the same time, people can cut angles quite well on those and just pick you up, I suppose.
I think so. I mean, you can definitely resource protect well in UKTC because you have those super elves, as you say. But given that you're wanting to at least be able to maybe push onto a second point of a certain amount of security and some such, I think looking at the latest UKTC maps, like it's very easy to get angles into those sort of side medium elves now. So
yes, because the light board they've rotated the L's on the sides, so there isn't a safe expansion essentially.
Yeah, you can almost shoot onto one point as long as you're on the other point, so to speak. And I think if you have like little 3-man units, you can hide them, but it's really edge of the line stuff. So it becomes harder to hide a block of five Terminator.
Yeah. So I've stuck with them. That's the spice for me. Was I've stuck with them, but I've gone somewhere I've never been before, and I'm curious to hear what your feedback of it is. But I've gone Stormlance. So I sat chatting to my friend Tom of 6++ fame, funnily enough, and we were chatting and we built a list. I was like, I sent him it, and he went, "You've still got this as Gladius. What about Stormlance?" And I was like, I had considered that, and then we looked at it, and I was like, right, take out these 2 impulses, and suddenly I've just got a bunch of guys screaming, advancing, and fallbacking and charging, led by the Lion, and it felt like a very Dark Angels list, but we'll have to see how it gets on, I guess.
I think that's it's a good
play. It's a lot of fight first. Just a lot of fight
first, and you have the threat range, which people don't necessarily expect from Terminators moving 5 inches, but you can project onto those points, which I think is pretty solid. I love the Lion. I wish I'd play him more. I've always found the Lion is a bit glass cannony though.
He's either win more, or he fails his first shot. Save and then just is shot off the table. There's no in between. I found it's like he's smashed. Like the last time I played him, he was going through a big guard brick with a command squad on Leontis with some inner circle companions, and the 2 of them just went boom and blended it.
Yeah,
that won't happen this weekend, or will it?
I find the value in the Lion is more in the threat of him. Yes. Rather than when him actually coming out, it's like, cool, he's going to kill something, then we'll kill him next turn. But the threat of him probably does more for your game plan than actually playing him.
Having a 4-up Feel No Pain against mortals as an aura around him, if you're kind of in that middle ground of the board, I think it's quite terrifying. And then sometimes even the tricksiness of, oh, you want to do a strat? Take a battle shock test. Oh, you spent the CP, you failed it, you're battle shocked. What a shame. Never mind. No fight on death strats for you now, buddy.
It's very good, but you don't necessarily get the synergy of the Azrael, right? Because you've already got the CP back as well. But
it's just helpful, right? But it's interesting, right? So we'll have to see. Like, what I'm curious to see is whether we see more Dark Angels or less this weekend. I haven't actually worked out the numbers for it, but I do think it's down, which doesn't surprise me too much because I think people have had time with the Blood Angels. Space Wolves have, I think, very much shown their value to a lot of people. So you will see a lot of perhaps green Space Wolves out there as well, but you never know.
And you have the inevitable migration, right? As people move through Dark Angels because they were sort of at a high through summer, and then now people have moved on to Guard. you filthy meta chasers. And so probably those numbers are down. But it probably means
those purple dark angels, man. I mean, who would paint purple dark angels?
Lunatics. Wait till you see my purple Lionel Johnson. Yeah, that's really going to make the narratives fume.
Lovely. Love it. Yeah. So I think that's just about it. Really covered. Do you have any shout outs you'd like to do to, like, because you're part of Tryhard Wargaming and you've got a really active Discord?
Yeah, what a leading question you've got there. Yeah. So obviously I co-run Tryhard Wargaming. We try hard to play competitive whilst remaining sort of semi-decent human beings. And we are mostly sort of a global community, but united by Discord. So come and give us a shout. And
great place to just get a game of TTS, I found. Like, if I'm ever at a loss end and I'm not already in our Discord, I'm like, well, I'll go see what's going on there. So.
Yeah, so we're a great third pick Discord, so absolutely go for it.
Right, so until next week, guys, that was it. So take care. And of course, don't forget, if you like the video, hit the like button below. You can subscribe to the channel as well. It's really useful. But more importantly, if you can become a YouTube member, you get some of the videos early. You get access to a secret bit in the Discord where I'll often just send lovely pictures of what I'm working on in the background to you. And it's really quite handy sometimes. And it's without you, these videos would not be possible. So thank you guys. Until next week, take care.
See you at IGT.